Hello, and welcome to a very special edition of the Dead Poet Revival. We are proud to present another special short story edition. As we look through the belated works of yore, we often find that poets are often writers of hymns and short stories. Dead Poet Revival has conjured up deceased author Sabine Baring-Gould. Sabine, born in Devon, England in 1834, he became a prolific novelist, hymn writer, and collector of traditional folk songs. The Reverend Sabine Baring-Gould is remembered particularly as a writer of hymns, the best known being Onward Christian Soldiers, Sing Lullaby, and Now the Day is Over. He also translated the carol Gabriel's Message from the Basque language to English. His bibliography consists of more than 1,240 publications, though this list grows continually. His wife Grace died in April 1916, and he did not remarry. He died on January 2nd, 1924, at his home at Lew Trenchard, and was buried next to his wife. Sit back and relax for today's special short story edition. Dead Poet Revival has dug up late author Sabine Baring-Gould's Book of Fairy Tales and a story of the Three Bears.
Section 19 of A Book of Fairy Tales. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Michael Landu. A Book of Fairy Tales by Sabine Baring-Gould. The Three Bears. It happened that on a time there lived in a wood 3 bears, and of these one was a great big bear, the second was a middle-sized bear, and the third was a wee bear. Each slept in his own bed, and naturally so, for the great big bear there was a great big bed, and also, quite naturally, for the middle-sized bear there was a middle-sized bed. And you can see for yourself, if you have common intelligence, for the wee bear there was provided a wee bed. But that was not all. Each had his own chair to sit in, and naturally so, for the great big bear there was a great big chair, and also, quite naturally, for the middle-sized bear there was a middle-sized chair, and also, in accordance with the dictates of common sense, for the wee bear there was provided a wee chair. That does not complete what has to be told. There goes more to the story than that. Each bear had a pot out of which to eat his porridge, and the great big bear had a great big pot. And also, in accordance with the eternal fitness of things, the middle-sized bear had a middle-sized pot, and there was for the wee bear only a wee pot. One day after they had poured out their porridge, they scalded their tongues with it. That is to say, the great big bear scalded his great long tongue, and the middle-sized bear scalded his medium tongue, and the wee bear scalded his weeny tongue. So they resolved to walk out arm in arm into the wood and listen to the whistling of the birds whilst their porridge cooled. Now, whilst they were out, a little girl came into the cottage, and seeing that there was good porridge smoking on the table, and no one there to eat it, she tripped in, as she was very hungry, and first she tasted the porridge of the great big bear, and found it so hot that she burnt her mouth. So she went to the second pot and tasted them, and then also after having taken a little, she thrust the pot from her, as it was too cold. Lastly, she went to the pot of the wee bear, and that was just right, so she ate it all up. Then the little maiden, having satisfied her hunger, felt tired with her walk, so she went to sit down, and first she sat in the chair of the great big bear, but she found it was too hard for her. She did not like it, so she got up and tried the chair of the middle-sized bear, and that she thought too soft, so she quickly jumped up out of that, and tried the chair of the wee bear, and that was exactly right. Neither too hard nor too soft. And she sat in it till she sat through the seat and came plump on the ground. Then the little maiden went upstairs into the bedchamber in which the 3 bears slept. And first she lay down on the bed of the great big bear, but it was too high at the head for her. So she got off it and tried next the bed of the middle-sized bear, and found it was too low in the head for her. So she got off that and went to the bed of the wee bear, and that was exactly right. She had no sooner laid her head on the pillow than she dropped asleep. By this time the 3 bears had heard enough of the whistling of the birds, and they thought that their porridge would be cool enough, so they came home to breakfast. Now the little girl had been careless and had left the spoon standing in the pot of the great big bear, so he roared out lustily, "Somebody has been at my porridge!" And then the middle-sized bear looked at his, and saw that the spoon was standing in that also, so he exclaimed with a growl, "Somebody has been at my porridge!" Then the wee bear looked at his, and found that his porridge was all gone, and the spoon licked clean also, so he said, "Somebody has been at my porridge, and has eaten it all up." Upon this, the 3 bears, seeing that someone had invaded their house whilst out together, arm in arm, looking at buttercups and hearing the birds whistle, began to peer about, and very soon the great big bear roared out at the top of his voice, "Somebody has been sitting in my chair!" For the little girl had not arranged the cushions after having sat on the chair. Then the middle-sized bear exclaimed with a growl, "Somebody has been sitting in my chair!" For the cushions there also were all in disorder. But the wee bear soon saw that the seat of his chair was sat through, so he whimpered out, "Somebody has been sitting in my chair, and has sat the bottom through." Then the 3 bears thought it requisite to make further search, and they walked upstairs, majores priores, as the classic Romans would have said, that is to say, biggest first. Now when the great big bear came to his bed, he saw that the pillow had been pushed on one side, so he booed out, "Somebody has been in my bed!" And the middle-sized bear saw that the pillow in his had been pushed up into one lump, so he said, "Somebody has been in my bed!" But the wee bear standing by his bed was so astonished that at first he could say nothing at all. At last he piped out, "Somebody has been in my bed, and is lying in it now." The little maid had heard the bellowing of the great big bear, but had been so fast asleep that the sound had not woke her, and she had heard the middle voice of the middle-sized bear, and that also had not woke her. She was so very sleepy. But when she heard the sharp little squeaky voice of the wee bear, she jumped up at once, and there she saw the 3 bears before her, glowering at her as if they wanted to eat her, and licking their lips and stretching out their claws. She was a little miss of a ready wit, so she turned to the first and made a profound curtsy down to the very ground, and said with the greatest deference, "Mr. Bear, I pray you forbear." And she made a nice little graceful curtsy to the second, and said with a pitiful voice, "Mr. Bear, I pray you forbear." And then sharp she gave a little bob of a bow to the wee bear, and caught him a wee box on his wee ear, and said, "Little berrykins, I don't care whether you forbear or not." And away down the stairs and out at the door, and away to her mammy home she ran. Then the 3 bears looked at each other, and the first said, "Dear," and the second said, "Dear," and the third, rubbing his ear, said, "Dear," and altogether concluded that little girls of the 19th century were so impudent that it was no longer possible for well-conducted bears to live in the forests of Old England. Notes: The 3 Bears, a tale by Southey. End of section 19. Recording by Michael Landau.